Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you send us, dig in, and pull out the most interesting bits, the key takeaways.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut, basically. You get the essential info without all the heavy listing.
Exactly. And today we're tackling something, something that gets people talking. You sent us parts of Don't Put That in There and 69 other sex myths debunked.
Right, by Dr. Carroll and Dr. Rachel Vreeman. Catchy title.
Definitely grabs your attention. And the book really goes after a lot of common ideas about sex, things we think we know that actually turn out to be, well, myths.
It's surprising how many there are. And the authors point out, where do we learn this stuff? Often it's like playground talk, maybe not so great, sex ed, TV, the internet.
Yeah, not always the most reliable sources, are they?
Not really. And these authors, they've done myth busting before in other areas, but apparently the sex myth stuff was always super popular.
That tells you something, right? People are looking for solid information here.
Absolutely. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Explore some of these, honestly, quite surprising sex myths that science has looked into. Touch on anatomy, performance, STIs, pregnancy, some common misconceptions.
Should be interesting. Okay, let's start with a big one. Penis size. There's this huge focus on whether it matters most for partner satisfaction.
Oh, yeah, that comes up a lot. The book mentions this massive internet survey, like over 50,000 people, and most guys reported having an average-sized penis.
And this is key, it was all self-reported, right? No one was actually measuring anything.
Exactly. So, how accurate is that? It's like asking people they're good drivers. Everyone thinks they're above average.
Good point. So there's that perception issue. But what about like the evolutionary angle? Did they look into that?
They touch on it. Scientists have wondered if there are links between, say, penis size and body shape or height, and maybe, over time, female mate selection played a role. It's a theory.
Interesting idea. But okay, the bottom line, for the listener wondering, does the science say size is the main thing for partner satisfaction?
Well, that's the crucial bit. The takeaway seems to be, while size might affect how a man feels about himself, maybe even if he exaggerates a bit.
Right.
The studies they cite suggest it doesn't necessarily correlate strongly with partner satisfaction. Other factors are way more important.
Okay, so maybe less worry needed there. That naturally leads to the next myth. You can tell penis size by looking at someone's feet or hands or nose. We've all heard that one.
Oh, totally. Classic example of trying to find patterns, right? Trying to guess what you can't see.
Yeah. Is there any biological basis at all?
There's a tiny sliver. The book mentions the Hox gene. It's involved in developing fingers and toes, but also the penis and clitoris.
Ah, okay. So one gene affects both areas during development. I can see how that gets twisted into a predictor.
Exactly. People run with that tiny link. But the authors are pretty clear. The reason people believe this myth isn't usually down to knowing about Hox genes.
No, it's more about just wanting a shortcut, right? A way to size things up, literally, before,
Pretty much. It's just human nature trying to find clues for hidden stuff. So, yeah, that connection, not really reliable.
Good to know. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. How about the idea of how long normal sex should last and worries about premature ejaculation?
Yeah, this is a really important one because perceptions of normal can cause a lot of anxiety. The data they present is interesting. How common PE is reported really depends on how you ask the question.
Right. Like if you just ask guys, do you think you finished too quickly? You get one number.
Yeah, maybe 20, 30% in some studies they mention.
But if you put a time limit on it, like less than a minute,
then the number drops way down, maybe 1 to 3%. It shows how subjective too fast can be.
Huge difference. But however you define it, the book stresses it can have real negative impacts, right, for both partners.
Oh, definitely. For the man, it can hit self-esteem, cause anxiety. For the partner, it might mean less satisfaction. It can affect the whole relationship quality.
That sounds tough. Is there good news, though? Is it treatable?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the key message here. See a doctor, rule out underlying issues. But there are treatments, medications, therapies, and crucially, partner support makes a big difference.
Okay, that's really positive. So help is available.
Definitely. Don't just worry about it. Talk to someone.
Good advice. All right, next myth. This one's big in sports. Athletes shouldn't have sex before a game because it weakens them.
Ah, the old no sex before the big game rule. Yeah, it's a persistent one. Physiologically, though.
What's the reality? How taxing is sex, really?
Well, generally it's considered mild to moderate exercise. Often lasts, maybe 5 minutes on average?
Okay, so like walking up a couple flights of stairs, maybe?
Pretty much, yeah. The calorie burn isn't huge, maybe 25 to 125 calories typically. Not exactly draining for a conditioned athlete.
So physically, probably not a big deal for most encounters. Is there a catch?
There's a small caveat. If you're talking like marathon, super vigorous sex that leaves you exhausted and sleep deprived.
Okay, yeah, that would be different.
Right. Then that could impact performance, just like any major exertion without rest.
Makes sense. But they also mention the psychological side, don't they?
Yes, and that might be more relevant for some.
Yeah.
Mental focus is key in sports. If chasing a partner or the act itself is distracting you, messing with your headspace before competing.
Then that could be the problem, regardless of the physical effort.
Exactly. So it's less about physical energy drain, usually, and more about individual focus and mindset. Very personal thing.
Got it. Okay, moving down. Anatomically speaking, the myth that testicles just keep sagging lower and lower as you age, like gravity just takes over completely.
Yeah, the idea that the scrotal muscles just give up over time.
Mm.
But the main job of those muscles is temperature control, right?
Right, keeping things optimal for sperm, pulling closer when cold, relaxing when warm.
Exactly. And the book says the biggest change in position really happens during puberty as things grow after that.
Not so much dramatic drooping.
Apparently not. There might be some skin loosening with age, sure, like anywhere else. But the smooth muscle itself, the stuff that does the moving, it keeps working. It's not really the type of tissue that sags dramatically like, say, skin might.
Okay, so maybe another exaggerated fear. Interesting. What about this one, priming the pump? The idea you can have like a quickie before longer sex to increase ejaculate volume.
Huh, yeah, that's specific. The authors looked at studies, one from Canada, one from Sweden, analyzing semen samples.
Does a warm-up lap increase the total volume?
What they found consistently was that the time since the last ejaculation impacts the sperm concentration. Less time, fewer sperm per ml. Makes sense.
Okay, that tracks. Body needs time to reload the sperm, but the volume, the total amount of fluid.
That's the key for this myth. The study showed no link between how quickly you ejaculate and the total volume produced.
So priming the pump for more volume doesn't actually work. It might lower the sperm count temporarily, but not the amount of fluid.
Seems that way, based on the research they cite. Myth busted.
All right, how about hygiene? Is semen inherently unclean or unhygienic?
That's another common perception they tackle. Their point is, generally speaking, semen is actually sterile.
Sterile? Wow, unless...
Unless the man has an infection, especially an STI, then obviously it can transmit that infection. But that's a different issue than the semen itself being dirty.
Right, the fluid isn't the problem, the potential infection is. How does it compare to, say, saliva?
This is the surprising bit. They point out that your mouth actually contains far more bacteria than typically found in semen.
Really? Yeah. Huh. So, relatively speaking, semen is pretty clean.
Comparatively, yes. Changes the perspective a bit, doesn't it?
It really does.
Not
Okay, next up. Can men just choose not to ejaculate? Like have a dry orgasm whenever they want?
The idea of conscious control over ejaculation,
Yeah.
the authors say, well, it's not definitively impossible, but
What?
there isn't really medical literature suggesting it's something most men can just easily do at will.
Okay, so maybe not a standard physiological trick most guys have up their sleeve. Perhaps some specific techniques exist, but it's not common or well documented medically.
Pretty much. Not presented as a regular capability for the average person.
Gotcha. Now, for something that sounds truly awful, the myth, you can't break your penis because, no bones.
Right. First clarification, no bones in a boner. It's blood-filling tissue, but that doesn't mean it can't get seriously injured.
So penile fractures, they're real.
They are real. Rare, thankfully maybe 1 in 175,000 hospital cases, but real. And apparently quite traumatic.
I bet. What happens?
Usually a distinct popping sound, immediate severe pain, lots of swelling, and the penis looks deformed.
Yikes. Okay, definitely something to avoid. How is it treated?
Typically surgery. They need to repair the tear in the tissue sheath, the tunica albuginea, remove blood clots, maybe fix the urethra if it's damaged, then obviously a long recovery period with no erections or sacs.
Yeah, sounds like a rough recovery. Definitely not unbreakable.
Not at all.
Okay, last myth for today. The fear that if you ejaculate too much, you'll run out of sperm. Is that possible?
Given the huge numbers involved, millions per ejaculation, you can see why people might wonder. But the key thing is sperm production.
It's continuous, right, after puberty.
Exactly. Men are constantly making sperm, millions a day. It's an ongoing process.
So even if you ejaculate frequently, the factory keeps running.
Pretty much. Now, ejaculating again very soon after might mean a lower sperm count in that specific sample.
Because you've used up the recently matured ones?
Right, but the supply is always being replenished. The book notes you're actually more likely to have a sort of dry orgasm, less fluid before you'd ever truly run out of the sperm cells themselves.
Okay. But for fertility, if someone's trying to conceive.
Then timing matters more.
Hmm.
Abstaining for a couple of days is often recommended then, just to maximize the sperm concentration for the best chance of conception.
Makes sense, but for general activity, running out isn't really a concern.
Doesn't seem to be, no. The
Yeah.
body keeps up.
Wow. We covered a lot. It's genuinely surprising how many of these common ideas don't quite match the science.
It really is. It just highlights how important it is to look for evidence-based information, not just rely on what you've always heard, especially with something like sex and health.
Definitely makes you question other things you take for granted about how our bodies work. Thanks. This was really eye-opening, hopefully for everyone listening too.
Glad to dive into it. And it does leave you thinking, doesn't it? If there are so many myths around sex, something so basic to being human, what other obvious things about ourselves, our biology, our behavior, might be based on similarly shaky ground that we just haven't questioned yet? Something to chew on.